Okay, let's just jump straight in because the sheer variety of incredible stories unfolding from India right now is just, well, it's astounding.
It really is.
We're talking about unexpected victories on the chessboard, huge shifts in global manufacturing, um, some really critical legal and political debates, and just so much more.
It feels like a period of really intense activity across so many different sectors. From grassroots drama to major policy decisions, India is definitely making headlines globally for a whole mix of reasons.
Absolutely. So for this deep dive, we've got a stack of your sources covering today's top headlines out of India. Our mission, pretty
Hmm.
simple: cut through the noise, unpack the most important insights, pull out those surprising facts,
Hmm.
and give you a quick, well-informed handle on a whole range of topics that, frankly, have global implications.
And it's a fascinating mix we've got. High-stakes sports drama, some deep dives into legal and political maneuvering, significant economic and business shifts, vital science and health news, and even some pretty intense social and cultural moments playing out online and off.
Exactly. So buckle up. Let's kick things off with some serious excitement from the world of sports.
Sounds like a perfect start. These stories have really captured national and international attention.
First up, the cerebral battlefield of chess. There's this incredible story of Indian prodigy Damaraju Gukesh.
Hmm.
He secured his first classical win against the legend Magnus Carlsen at Norway Chess 2025.
Yeah, that's huge. Not just a win, like you said, but his first classical one against Carlsen.
A monumental moment.
Definitely. Gukesh, playing with the white pieces, capitalized on something we almost, well, never see from Carlsen, a rare blunder right in the endgame.
Right. And Carlsen was actually in a pretty strong position early on, wasn't he? Really putting pressure on Gukesh, who was under that incremental time control.
He was, but Gukesh's defense was just incredibly disciplined, really precise, and then somehow he found that path to a counterattack.
The sources highlight Carlsen's reaction to apparently visible frustration, even reportedly punching the table before storming out.
Mm-hmm. It really just underscores how unexpected and impactful this loss must have been for him.
And it comes after that earlier game
Yeah.
where Carlsen beat Gukesh and then posted that cryptic Instagram message, you come at the king, you best not miss.
Uh-huh. Whoa.
Well, this time, Gukesh absolutely did not miss. Chess legend Susan Polgar even called the loss one of the most shocking in Carlsen's career, didn't she? Pointing out how incredibly rare his classical blunders are.
She did. And this victory, it really shakes up the tournament standings, makes the title race much more intense. And it wasn't the only good news for Indian chess in that round either.
Oh,
Indian Grandmaster Arjun Erigaisi also secured a win against Wei Yi, so a really strong round for India overall.
wow, a powerful 1-2 punch for India's young talents on the global chess stage. Adds a whole lot of drama to the rest of the tournament.
It's a clear signal of their growing strength, no doubt.
Okay, so from the strategic board to the electric energy of the cricket pitch, the IPL Qualifier 2 delivered its own dose of high-stakes drama.
It certainly did. We saw the Punjab Kings beat the Mumbai Indians in, well, a really thrilling 5-wicket victory at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad. That booked their spot in the final.
And they were chasing a massive target, 204 runs, is huge in T20. The hero of the night had to be Captain Shreyas Iyer with that absolutely spectacular unbeaten 87 off just 41 balls.
Unbelievable innings. 8 towering sixes in there. Talk about stepping up under pressure.
He was just phenomenal. And the match itself, it got pushed way past 1:30 a.m. local time because of a long rain delay.
Right, that must have been tough.
But the excitement didn't fade. Punjab won the toss, chose to field first, and that decision, plus Iyer's incredible batting display, secured their return to the IPL final for the first time in, 11 years?
11 years, yeah. And this sets up a really fascinating final match. Punjab Kings will now face Royal Challengers Bengaluru, meaning IPL 2025 is guaranteed to crown a brand new champion. Neither team has won it before.
Which is a massive deal, especially for Bengaluru. They've been to the final 3 times before 2009, 2011, 2016, but never lifted the trophy.
Yeah, the pressure will be immense on them. The sources also mentioned co-owner Preeti Zinta's really enthusiastic celebration after the Punjab win, which adds that touch of Bollywood flair to the moment.
Of course.
But Iyer's performance was undoubtedly the key, the linchpin in overcoming Mumbai's formidable challenge.
So the stage is set. A battle for a maiden IPL trophy for both teams. Will Punjab's dream run end in victory, or can Bengaluru finally break their final jinx? It's It's going to be quite the spectacle.
Absolutely. And these sporting events, they don't just showcase incredible talent. They really reflect the passion and the competitive drive that's such a huge part of India's global identity right now.
And speaking of India's complex global presence, let's maybe transition to navigating the legal and political landscape because some intensely debated stories are unfolding there.
Indeed. Yeah, one headline that has really kicked off a heated debate about free speech is the arrest of Sharmishta Panoli.
Okay, maybe help us understand who she is and what exactly led to this arrest.
Sure. So Sharmishta Panoli is a 22-year-old law student and also a social media influencer.
Mm.
Her arrest came after she posted this controversial video criticizing what she saw as Bollywood's silence on something called Operation Sindoor.
Okay.
The problem was the video apparently contained language that was seen as highly offensive and derogatory towards Islam and the Prophet Muhammad.
Right. And I understand after the backlash, she did issue an apology and took the video down.
She did, yes. But the arrest itself still happened, and it drew immediate and very strong condemnation from the Bar Council of India chairman, Manan Kumar Mishra.
And he's not just the BCI chair, he's also a senior advocate and a BJP member of parliament, correct?
That's correct. And Mishra publicly called the arrest a blatant assault on freedom of expression and an absolute failure of justice. He demanded her immediate release and straight up accused the West Bengal government and the Kolkata police of having political motives.
Wow, so this case really seems to crystallize a core conflict we see debated a lot. Where does free speech end and hate speech begin?
Exactly. Legal experts are questioning if this arrest goes too far, if it violates constitutional protections. On the other side, you have arguments for the necessity of enforcing laws against language perceived as inciting religious tensions.
Especially from public figures, like influencers.
Precisely. The case has definitely captured national attention. It highlights concerns about potential government overreach versus demands for accountability for social media content, particularly when it touches on sensitive religious topics. It's a complex balancing act, you know? Protecting expression versus preventing incitement based on what the sources are reporting.
Absolutely. It raises some really challenging questions for any society navigating the digital age. And this intersection of politics, it isn't just in social commentary, it's also playing out in cricket administration, of all places.
That's right. The whole controversy surrounding the BCCI's decision to relocate the IPL playoff and final matches from Kolkata to Ahmedabad.
Yeah, the West Bengal government was pretty vocal in their criticism, weren't they? Claiming the decision wasn't really about weather forecasts, but was politically motivated.
Their state sports minister, Arup Biswas, was especially critical. He argued that the satellite weather data the BCCI used was flawed, and he pointedly noted that the same satellite failed to predict the rain that did happen in Gujarat during that Qualifier 2 match we just talked about.
Ouch.
So he accused the BCCI of deliberately sidelining Bengal and depriving fans in Kolkata.
And didn't he also raise a point about the actual IPL rules?
Yes. Biswas claimed there's an IPL rule that mandates the previous year's champion's home ground should host the final. Since the previous champion is based in Kolkata, he argued the BCCI's decision to move it violated this rule, which, in his view, just fueled more speculation about political interference.
So this isn't just some logistical argument about rain, then. It's feeding into this broader, ongoing debate about how much political influence there is within Indian cricket administration and whether major sporting decisions are being swayed by government agendas. The Economic Times reported quite a bit on the West Bengal government's strong pushback and their demand for transparency.
It definitely highlights a significant tension, could shape future venue selections, the relationship between sports bodies and state governments. We're just laying out the different claims and counterclaims presented in the sources here, of course.
Right. Understood. Okay. Moving from those political debates to something with massive long-term implications for the country's foundational systems. This ambitious plan to overhaul India's entire criminal justice system.
This is a truly significant undertaking. Home Minister Amit Shah announced it during the inauguration of a new Central Forensic Science Laboratory, or CFSL, in Kolkata. The core goal: to shift India's criminal justice system towards being fundamentally evidence-based.
Evidence-based. Starting when?
The target date mentioned is January 2026.
Okay, and how are they planning to actually achieve that on such a massive scale? It sounds huge.
Well, the new CFSL lab in Kolkata is a big investment itself, built on 6 acres, about 90 crore outlay. But that's just one piece. The broader plan involves creating clusters of states to develop integrated forensic infrastructure. The aim is to make sure every single police station across the country can access CFSL facilities.
Wow. That sounds like a massive logistical and financial challenge.
It absolutely is. The emphasis is shifting, so criminal cases rely much more heavily on forensic evidence rather than just witness testimony or arguments. The government believes this will significantly reduce the high acquittal rates often seen because of a lack of concrete proof.
And the investment figures involved are pretty staggering, aren't they?
They really are. There's 860 crore allocated for 7 new CFSL facilities in key states like Uttar Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Bihar.
7 new labs.
And on top of that, 30,000 crore is being invested in 9 new campuses for the National Forensic Sciences University, their goal, to train 36,000 forensic experts.
36,000 experts. Just the investment in training alone signals how serious this shift is meant to be.
They're also leveraging technology. The existing CCTNS system, Crime and Criminal Tracking Network and Systems, already connects over 17,000 police stations online. And there are plans for a 200 crore National Forensic Data Center that will use AI for advanced data analysis.
Using AI and forensic data analysis, that really could be a game changer.
Potentially, yes. The plan also includes deploying forensic mobile vans in every district and making it legally mandatory for forensic teams to visit crime scenes for any serious case carrying a sentence of 7 years or more.
So the intended outcome is clear. A significantly stronger, more reliable criminal justice system, and hopefully a real improvement in conviction rates based on solid scientific evidence. This feels like a foundational change impacting millions.
It really has the potential to fundamentally reshape law enforcement and the delivery of justice across India.
And speaking of complex legal matters, there's this fascinating, very specific case involving someone named Shravan Gupta and a double jeopardy argument.
Ah, yes. This case really highlights the complexities that crop up in international legal proceedings. Basically, a Delhi court is reviewing a money laundering case against Shravan Gupta, where he had already been convicted over in Abu Dhabi for what are described as similar offenses.
So he's essentially saying, hang on, I've already faced the music for this elsewhere, and challenging the Indian summons based on that principle of double jeopardy, which is protected under the Indian Constitution and the Criminal Procedure Code, the CRPC.
Precisely. The original case apparently stems from a complaint by Emaar India against MGF Development, Gupta, and others, alleging fraud and the siphoning of something like 180 crore.
Right. And Gupta's core argument is that his conviction back in Abu Dhabi in February 2024 for those specific offenses should legally prevent him from being prosecuted again in India under those double jeopardy rules. He also claimed the complainant deliberately hid the fact of that foreign judgment from the Indian courts.
Interesting. The Delhi court noted that these kinds of cases involving foreign judgments alongside ongoing trials in India, they require lengthy, careful hearings. So as a result, they've stayed proceedings in the Indian case until July 4th and issued notices to the Enforcement Directorate and the state government to get their responses.
This feels like it could set a really important precedent, doesn't it?
Legal experts following the case seem to agree. They believe this plea made under Article 22 of the Constitution and Section 300 CRPC, those specific double jeopardy provisions could set a significant precedent for how Indian courts handle cases where convictions have already happened internationally.
Yeah.
It raises critical questions about cross-border legal cooperation and just how double jeopardy is interpreted when foreign legal outcomes are involved. Definitely one to keep an eye on as it develops.
Absolutely. Okay, let's shift gears now to the economic landscape and some pretty significant business news.
Always a sector driving major headlines.
The Reserve Bank of India, the RBI, is on the cusp of announcing its latest interest rate decision, and there seems to be a strong expectation about what's coming.
Yeah, the general consensus among economists seems to be leaning towards a third consecutive 25 basis point cut to the benchmark interest rate. That's the repo rate, the key rate the RBI lends to banks at.
The third cut.
And also maintaining a supportive stance on overall liquidity in the financial system.
What's the sort of economic backdrop that's leading to that expectation?
Well, a couple of things. While India's overall GDP growth forecast has slowed a bit for this fiscal year, projected around 6.5% compared to 9.2%, previously, the most recent quarterly data for the March quarter was actually stronger than expected at 7.4% growth.
Okay.
And crucially, inflation has remained pretty comfortably within the RBI's target range of 4%.
So that inflation number is giving them some room to maneuver, basically.
Exactly. Economists largely believe the current sort of benign inflation environment and ample liquidity in the system give the central bank space to ease interest rates a bit more. They already cut the repo rate by 25 basis points down to 6% back in April.
Right.
And another similar cut is widely anticipated after the Monetary Policy Committee meeting wraps up on June 6th.
And are there favorable external factors playing a role, too, like monsoon or oil prices?
Yes, definitely. An expected above-normal monsoon is generally seen as positive for agriculture and rural demand. And subdued global crude oil prices are also helping keep inflationary pressures in check. Analysts are forecasting average crude prices maybe around $65–70 per barrel this fiscal, which is lower than last year's average of about $78.08. Plus, the RBI has been actively managing liquidity, injecting funds when needed.
I even saw some experts are forecasting maybe an additional 50 basis point cut later this fiscal year on top of this expected June cut.
That reflects the overall sort of optimism driven by current conditions. But, there are always risks. Global uncertainties, things like the potential expiry of the U.S. tariff reprieve in July, that could impact things. The RBI will undoubtedly reassess all its forecasts and give an outlook that addresses these potential headwinds.
Yeah, these interest rate decisions are just so foundational, aren't they? They impact everything from borrowing costs for businesses and individuals to investment decisions right across the economy.
They really are key levers, influencing the cost of capital and helping shape the trajectory of economic activity.
And speaking of reshaping economics, here's a headline with truly massive global implications. India has reportedly overtaken China as the world's cheapest manufacturing hub.
This is huge news, according to World of Statistics data, citing U.S. News and World Report.
Yeah, it represents a major, potentially fundamental shift in global production dynamics.
For decades, China has been the undisputed factory of the world. This report suggests India is now seriously challenging that dominance, specifically on cost effectiveness.
And the immediate implication seems pretty clear. It's expected to significantly boost India's attractiveness for global companies looking to cut production costs. Could lead to a potential surge in foreign direct investment, FDI.
Right.
India's competitive advantage here is being described as a potential game changer for global manufacturing strategies.
Who else is in that top group, according to the ranking?
Behind India, the ranking places Vietnam, then Thailand, the Philippines, and Bangladesh. Interesting. So, while China obviously remains a manufacturing giant, this data suggests its position as the absolute cheapest option is now under threat.
Exactly. And the sources note that India's Strong Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, figures for April 2025 seem to support this trend, 58.2 for manufacturing and 58.7 for services. Remember, anything above 50 on the PMI generally indicates economic expansion.
So they're strong numbers.
Very strong. Shows robust growth and confidence, positioning India favorably in the global cost competition, even ahead of major economies like the U.S. and France in this specific cost race, according to the report.
This development is clearly poised to give a significant boost to India's economy by attracting more businesses to relocate manufacturing there. It's cementing India's place as a global manufacturing leader and, as one source put it, maybe serves as a bit of a wake-up call for China. And think about how this could potentially impact global supply chains, maybe even the cost of goods you see on shelves internationally.
It's a really fascinating evolution in the global economic landscape.
Absolutely. Now, from manufacturing physical goods to manufacturing, well, entertainment. Let's look at the business of a potential blockbuster film.
The world of Indian cinema, always generating buzz. Rajinikanth's upcoming film Coolie is making waves because it's set to be one of India's most expensive film productions ever.
The reported budget is, a staggering 375 crore, which is roughly, over 45 million US dollars. It's billed as a high-octane action thriller, star-studded cast including Nagarjuna, Amir Khan, Upendra, Pooja Hegde.
And with the release date set for August 15, 2025, the excitement is already immense. But the figures really grabbing headlines are the paychecks for the top talent.
Yeah, Rajinikanth is reportedly commanding a 150 crore upfront fee that has to be one of the highest reported for any actor in India. And the director, Lokesh Kanagaraj, is getting a record unit crore.
So do the math. Out of that 375 crore budget, 200 crore is already allocated just to the lead star and director. That leaves the remaining 150 crore for all other production costs. The rest of the cast, crew salaries, VFX, everything, plus another estimated 25 crore just for print and publicity.
A budget of 375 crore, it just sounds like a massive financial risk for one film.
It really does on the surface, doesn't it? But the sources we looked at emphasize that despite the huge budget, it's actually being viewed as a low-risk venture by industry analysts.
Okay, how can something with that kind of budget be considered low risk? That sounds counterintuitive.
It comes down to incredibly strong pre-release deals they've apparently secured for the non-theatrical rights.
Okay, break those down for us. What kind of deals are we talking?
Well, the digital streaming rights alone reportedly sold for a massive 130 crore.
Just for streaming. Okay.
Then the satellite TV rights fetched another 90 crore, and the music rights added another 20 crore to the pot.
Wait a minute. So 130 plus 90 plus 20.
Okay.
That's a 240 crore already secured from non-theatrical earnings before the movie even opens in a single cinema.
Exactly, which means that out of the total 375 crore budget, the film only needs to recover the remaining euro 135 crore from actual box office collections worldwide just to break even.
Wow. Okay, that definitely puts the risk into a very different perspective.
It really does. And it's planned for a multi-language release, Tamil, Telugu, and Hindi, ensuring that wide pan-Indian appeal. So with the massive star power, the high production scale, and those incredibly lucrative pre-release deals, Cooley is clearly positioned as a major blockbuster that has significantly de-risked its huge upfront cost.
It's just fascinating to see how the business model in entertainment has evolved to manage these kinds of massive investments.
It reflects a very sophisticated approach, leveraging all those diverse revenue streams available in the modern media landscape.
Okay, moving now from economics to some critically important health, social, and cultural issues that are making headlines.
Right. And what most urgent public health challenges being highlighted is the growing crisis of antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, in India.
This is the really scary situation where bacteria and other microbes evolve to resist the drugs designed to kill them, like antibiotics, creating these deadly superbugs. And I saw the sources mention it's driven by both overuse and lack of access. That sounds like a really difficult paradox to deal with.
It is, and it highlights the complexity of the problem, especially within a diverse healthcare system like India's. There was a study by JARDP, that's the Global Antibiotic Research and Development Partnership, that looks specifically at carbapenem-resistant gram-negative infections, CRGN, across 8 countries.
And these are bad because...
These bacteria are particularly worrying because they resist carbapenems, which are often considered the last-line antibiotics, the ones you turn to when others fail. Globally, the study found only about 6.9% of patients with these dangerous infections actually received appropriate treatment.
And India's situation within that study was particularly alarming, wasn't it?
Yes. It found that despite India accounting for a huge proportion, 80% of the full courses of the specific antibiotics studied across all 8 countries, it treated only an estimated 7.8% of its own estimated CRGN cases with the appropriate last-line antibiotics.
So, high usage overall, but low usage of the right drug for these specific resistant infections. Where are these CRGN bacteria commonly found?
They're often present in water, in food, and unfortunately they're frequently found in hospital ICUs. The infections they cause, things like pneumonia, urinary tract infections, pose a severe threat, especially to vulnerable groups like newborns and the elderly.
So what's causing this huge treatment gap in India? Why aren't people getting the right drugs?
The sources point to a mix of factors. Weaknesses in the health systems, the often high cost of the effective newer antibiotics, limited access to healthcare facilities that are actually equipped to diagnose and treat these complex infections, and also barriers cited by physicians themselves, including patients just not being able to reach the right facilities, limited access to the necessary diagnostic tests, and simply not being able to afford the expensive drugs.
So what are the suggested ways forward? How do you tackle something this complex?
Well, experts suggest stronger regulatory measures. Things like maybe requiring approval from infection specialists before prescribing these crucial last-line antibiotics to prevent misuse. But critically, it's not just about restricting use. It's equally about ensuring equitable access for those who genuinely need these life-saving drugs.
It's a tough balance, and India's in a unique position here being a major drug manufacturer.
It is. It was the largest market for new antibiotics in this particular study, and it does have the potential to lead global efforts, not just in R&D, but also in creating innovative models for equitable access. The sources mention successful examples, like Kerala's hub-and-spoke model for antimicrobial stewardship programs.
The stark warning, though, is that without urgent action, globally, we risk losing our ability to treat common infections, perform routine surgeries, manage complications from things like cancer treatment, all procedures that rely heavily on effective antibiotics. The challenge is that complex balance, promoting wise use while ensuring access for those who desperately need them. It's not just an Indian problem, it's a global threat to modern medicine.
A truly critical issue with massive global implications. Absolutely.
Okay, sticking with health, let's look at a recent study focusing on the well-being of a really crucial group, medical students.
Ah, yes, this is the study that examined smartphone addiction among undergraduate medical students.
And the findings were quite revealing, weren't they? Something like 40% of the surveyed students showed signs of smartphone addiction.
Yes, that's right. Out of the 224 students they surveyed, 40% showed addiction signs. It was slightly higher among males, 46.2%, compared to females at 33.3%.
And what were they primarily using their phones for? Was it academic?
Well, overwhelmingly no. 90% said primarily for entertainment. Only about 29% said primarily for academic or professional purposes, with 19% using them for both.
Okay, and the part of the study about using phones in hazardous situations was particularly alarming, wasn't it?
It really was. A large number, 186 students, admitted using their phones in risky situations 80% while just walking on roads, and a really significant 37.5% even while crossing streets.
Wow.
Interestingly, while female students reported more overall risky behavior involving phones, male students were more likely to admit using phones while driving.
And this excessive phone use, it was linked to other health issues too, like mental health.
Absolutely. The study found a clear connection between high smartphone use and poor mental health outcomes, as well as sleep disturbances.
No.
They cited specific examples like female students experiencing guilt related to their phone use, while male students reported anxiety specifically linked to poor network connectivity.
Huh. Interesting gender split there.
Yeah, and the study also noted that younger students tended to show higher levels of addiction symptoms, stress, and sleep problems.
Professor Carr's warning about the potential emotional and behavioral changes, irritability, anxiety, frustration stemming from this overuse really stands out.
He specifically highlighted that even just reducing screen time could lead to significant improvements in the mental health and overall well-being of these future doctors.
This study really underscores the hidden psychological costs of, pervasive technology use, even for people who are training to care for others' health. It's a call for awareness, maybe intervention for these future healthcare professionals, and perhaps makes you think about your own screen time habits too, right? Could a reduction benefit your well-being?
A very timely and relevant concern for many of us, I think.
Yeah. Okay, finally, let's touch on a cultural moment that sparked significant controversy and debate online and internationally as well.
Right. This involves an Indian YouTuber known online as Malik Swashbuckler and a series of pretty derogatory remarks he reportedly made while filming videos in Turkey.
Right, I saw headlines about this. Videos of him filmed across Turkey went viral and apparently triggered widespread condemnation, leading to a police investigation over there.
That's what local media reports in Turkey indicated, that Turkish authorities detained him, although official confirmation of the specific details seemed limited in the sources we saw. The backlash apparently intensified, partly because viewers noticed that in some instances, he seemed to switch to speaking in Hindi.
Oh.
Possibly, people speculated, to avoid being understood or detected by locals when making certain comments.
And what specifically was in these videos that caused such outrage? What kind of comments are we talking about?
Well, the sources described instances of him using sexually explicit and really objectifying language, referring to Turkish women using derogatory slang terms like mal and item.
Okay, that's not good.
No. In another widely cited clip, he was apparently in a store and questioned why they didn't display an Indian flag while making sort of snide remarks about Turkey in Hindi.
And there was a particularly disturbing report about him asking his viewers something about assaulting his Turkish guide.
Yes, that specific piece of reported footage was highlighted as especially disturbing and clearly contributed significantly to the intense outrage online.
And this controversy also seemed to play out against a backdrop of some existing geopolitical tensions and even calls for boycotts between India and Turkey.
While those broader tensions exist, yeah, the social media reactions seemed overwhelmingly focused on condemning the YouTuber's behavior itself. Many people online insisted his reported arrest was justified.
The argument being, I suppose, that tourists are essentially ambassadors for their countries and should be held accountable for disrespecting local cultures and individuals.
That was definitely a common sentiment expressed. Following the intense backlash, the YouTuber reportedly deleted his social media accounts, but the videos themselves and the discussions about the incident continue to circulate widely online. This whole case has really reignited important discussions about responsible tourism, about the accountability of online personalities for their actions, both online and offline, and just the crucial importance of cultural sensitivity in our increasingly digital and interconnected world.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder, isn't it, that actions taken online or captured on video while abroad can have significant real-world consequences and reflect on more than just the individual involved.
Absolutely. It brings up complex questions about how we navigate different cultural norms in public spaces, both the physical ones and the digital ones.
Phew. We've covered an extraordinary amount of ground in this deep dive today.
We really have. From those intense strategic battles on the chessboard and the high-stakes thrills of that IPL final.
Right, to courtrooms debating complex international legal precedents and labs pushing the boundaries of forensic science and battling deadly superbugs.
And we've looked at significant economic shifts reshaping global manufacturing, the surprising psychological impacts of our relationship with technology, and these intense debates on cultural sensitivity and online accountability when traveling.
Each of these headlines, they're so diverse, but each one offers a really vital window into the complex, fast-moving, and deeply interconnected nature of India and its significant place in the world right now.
They absolutely showcase the rapid pace of change, the persistent challenges, and also the undeniable opportunities that are defining the country today across so many different facets of life.
So here's maybe something for you, our listener, to consider as you go about your day. How do all these seemingly disparate events, from the result of a single chess match affecting global rankings to national policies impacting millions of lives, from the intricate economics of making a blockbuster film to the ethics of how we behave online when broadback. How do they collectively paint a picture? A picture of the challenges and opportunities shaping not just India, but the interconnected world we all actually live in today.